Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Bet365 Stadium here in Stoke. Norwich City back in action today, back in domestic action after an international break that has felt lengthy after that victory over Haaland. Impressive victory it was as well. And they're here for the Narcis Palace derby. It's a beautifully sunny day here in Stoke. That certainly wasn't the case as we travelled up. I can assure you of that. And we have the team news for you. So Norwich City line up like this. It is, of course, George Long in goal. Fisher, Duffy, Cordoba and Doyle as the back four. Marcelino Nunez starts for Norwich City alongside Kenny McLean and Anis Ben Slimani in midfield. And it's Antti Sienats and Borja Sainz either side of Josh Sargent. So I made that one change, which is Long for Gunn. I believe from that side that the beat hole prior to the international break. And I guess the headline figure or the headline sort of statements there are that both Cordoba and Nunez make it after some injury concerns. The bench for Norwich City: Archie Mayer, Jack Stacey, Grant Hanley, Ben Frizene, Gabe Forsyth, Oscar Schwartau, Cade Gordon, Michael Forston, and Emi Marcondes. So there is the Norwich City 11. Just to read that to you again, it's Long in goal, Fisher, Duffy, Cordoba and Doyle as the back four, Nunez, McLean, who captains the team, then Anis Ben Slimani, Sienats, Sainz and Sargent, and a sub-bench of Mayer, Stacey, Hanley, Frizene, Forsyth, Schwartau, Gordon, Forston and Marcondes. So one change, which is probably what we anticipated really, in obviously George Long taking Angus Gunn's place this afternoon, given of course that side strain that is going to keep him out as well. We'll try and bring you the Stoke team very, very shortly. Paddy's eagerly working out for me as we speak. Finley's very happy with that team. Shaney as well. We'll of course get into your predictions to keep them rolling. Whilst we're live, we'll flash them to the bottom of the screen. Neil Lupa, of course, that is the question. Can you present on a Saturday? So, well, it's not cold and it's not wet. It certainly was that on the way up here. So the stereotype kind of ended by the time we approached Staffordshire, which maybe is quite good. But the key headline from that Norwich City team, probably that Marcelino Nunez fit to start. Of course, he pulled out of action for Chile over the break because of a hamstring issue that meant that he didn't play in their World Cup qualifying defeats to Brazil or Colombia. But and I think some of the noises definitely that we were hearing in the first week of that international break had a lot of concern about just quite how long he would be out. But it seems that whatever they're putting in the water at Colney seems to be doing the job because he's fit and available to start. Bring you that Stoke team, but I can already see looking at this team sheet, Ben Gibson captains Narcis Palace's team today. And some interesting names in there. Tom Cannon as well, who's a striker that, of course, Norwich City like. We'll bring you that in just a second. Once Paddy has worked it up. But interested to sort of hear your guys' thoughts on that. How are you feeling about George Long in goal? It feels like a big opportunity for him, doesn't it? I can see that the goalkeeper's being put through their paces by Tony Roberts below me. And interestingly, a point I would make about, so we can't spin it around, I'm afraid, but the away end here has moved, so you may be familiar if you've watched highlights or whatnot of it being behind the goal. It's actually in that corner, and there's a fair few yellow shirts already filling out. I think Paddy's working the Stoke team, but just to get you on Marcelino Nunez, Paddy, it's a big boost, isn't it, for Norwich City this afternoon?
Yeah, we'll give him the indication from people inside the club was 4 to 8 weeks, was it, Connor?
Yeah, it was.
That was right after the whole game. I thought it was interesting when you had this smoke on Thursday and more or less said that, that they feared the worst immediately after the game, and he had a lot of pain from the hamstring. Didn't go with Chile, obviously. But then I think at some point, maybe in that first international week, they scanned it. It's come back far more positive than they thought. And from there, he's obviously improved to the point where, he did make it clear that he hadn't trained up until Thursday of this week. So, that's 11 days without kicking a ball or doing any work, really. Obviously, I think it was some new pictures that they've got on the bike, wasn't there? Did have been recovery stuff. But the last 2 days, he's obviously proved his fitness sufficient to start again, and it is a massive boost, because he was so good against Hull. We went a little bit under the radar. There was others who maybe grabbed up the limelight, but I thought he was key to that win. Just his all-round game, really. He's come on so far from the player he was in the first season or two under a different manager, to be fair, but now he's adding that consistency, and he looks like he's really enjoying his football. You know, he's got the technical ability, but he's added so many other elements which make him, for me, in this template, absolutely indispensable. I think that it goes far to say. I don't think, if hypothetically he's not fit today, Schwartau probably gets a nod, and I don't think he's quite the same finished article as Nunes would be. So, yeah, that's a massive plus, no doubt about it.
Yeah, it does feel like probably after this is his third season in England now, so it does kind of feel like after a couple of inconsistent seasons where there's been a little bit of injury, it probably does feel like this is now the moment, post Gabriel Sara, post maybe others who've been in that position ahead of him, obviously with Liam Gibbs out as well and various others, he now has a real opportunity. I think when Johannes Oftorp was appointed, to be fair, he was one of the players that I think probably everyone looked at with the style of play and how technical it is, feeling that he could really excel, and actually that tweak and what we've spoken a lot about the pushing the fullbacks inside into inverted positions, but what that enables Norwich to do is get Marcelino Nunez a lot higher up the pitch, which is a real positive. And I guess on a similar note, Paddy, Jose Cordoba, who's the other one, obviously he did start against Hull in that 4-0 win, played 90 minutes, and that probably meant that Panama wanted to take a look at him. Actually, in a weird kind of way, the fact he's not played in either of those games, he's had a little bit of rest, given that it sounds like it's more of a load issue in his knee, might actually end up being quite a positive thing for Norwich City in the long run.
I think Johannes was quite clear that there was no issue from Norwich's point of view with him going back. You know, he got to see family, I'm sure, and almost a bit of R&R for him. It must have been a very hectic period, you know, to join a new club, not be quite ready at the fitness level, have to bide your time, all the off-the-pitch adaptation. You know, he's coming from very different environments, different league. So almost, that headspace to go away. But clearly there was a lot of joined up thinking between Norwich's medical team here and the Panamanian equivalents. You know, that they didn't try and play him in what were two friendlies, but it made no sense whatsoever. So I think you saw some pictures of him. I think he was doing a little bit of light training work, but any of the major sort of training load, he didn't look to be involved in. So with Panama. So, hopefully we'll see the upside of that today, because this is the start of a 6-game block, 4 out of 5 away games, very grueling period. And he's going to be pretty key to it, I think, him and Duffy, because they look like they're forming quite the partnership. And, of course, it's allowing Doyle to be a bit more progressive in his positioning on the pitch. And Callum Fisher alongside him on the other flank. So, as we said with Nunes, to take him out would disrupt. I think that would have been the case if Cordoba wasn't fit today. But at the back of your head, a little bit concerning that he clearly is managing a knee problem. Maybe there's a parallel with Sargent and how he's been over the last 18 months or so. But you would just hope, particularly as it's going to get pretty grueling now, this swing between now and Christmas, outside another international break, but his body can hold up to the rigours and then they don't need to sort of think plan B, because it does feel now clearly Cordoba alongside Duffy, that's the prime reason back there.
Yeah, it does. And again, we speak about changes, what he allows him to do, push their line up higher. He's good in big spaces. We've seen all of those elements. Let's bring you the Stoke team then. That's a bit funky, Paddy. I'm not sure I put Ben Wilmot in number 10, but that's fine. They're all of the players who are playing in there. So
there might be a bit of guesswork there, Connor. Let's put it this way, it's the same. It's the 11 names that are playing for Stoke. Not necessarily in the right order. If you're old enough, you'll know the Andre Previn sketch with the two Ronnies. I'm showing my age. The players on that graphic will be playing for Stoke, not necessarily in that position.
To be fair, I don't think you're far up. I think if you swap Wilmot for
it's Narcissus. It's very fluid, Connor.
That's true. Fluid. And I think Kumas will probably be in the number 10. But barring that, I don't think you're far off, to be fair, given you were trying to multitask and whatnot. But they like Johansson in goal, Stevens, Rose, Ben Gibson, and we think it'll be Wilmot at left back, Moran and Berger as their midfield 2. I think it's going to be Manhurth on the right, Bay on the left, who's a very good South Korean winger. And then I think it'll be Kumas behind Tom Cannon up front. Their sub-bench, Jack Bonham, Andre Vidigal, Seko, Niall Ennis, Jordan Thomas, Eric Bocat, Junior Tuamendi, who I think was linked with Norwich once upon a time, Ashley Phillips, and Emre Tezgel makes up their bench. So there you go. That's all of the names that are playing for Stoke, not necessarily in the right order. But there we go. George Long, Paddy, I think we've spoken to Johannes about him over there as he just emerges from the tunnel. Big opportunity for him today, isn't it? You think about the spell he had last season, which maybe wasn't the best in terms of form for him or the collective. You think about this system, though, and Norwich City's goalkeepers are a lot better protected, you have to say. And Johannes has been speaking pretty glowingly. Obviously signed a new contract recently as well. He will be seen this as a real opportunity for him to try and push his claim to take that number 1 spot from Angus Gunn?
Sorry, Luke's probing me here, yeah. No, wrong one.
Well, that is still remarkable, to be fair.
Cardiff 5-0 up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go watch it on YouTube, it's hilarious. George Long, is that the right lineup? Because I'm determined to get the right one. That is the right lineup.
I think so, yeah.
You think that's the right lineup? Right, so before the end of this broadcast, we will have the right Stoke lineup.
We'll have the right Stoke lineup.
Nothing is not professional. George Long, let's hope he's not being tested by that Stoke lineup, because I've seen 1 or 2 people get behind him. I've seen that guy expressed on X in the last day or 2. I find it a bit strange that we need to sort of ask anybody to get behind him, because that's the reality. Gunny isn't available today. It didn't sound from what Johannes was suggesting that he would be available probably for the rest of this week. And if that is the case, then George Long is going to get a bit of a concerted run in the side. He came in against Hull second half. He didn't have huge amounts to do, but what he did do, I thought, was quite composed. It's a big ask, because I think Gunny is the undisputed number 1 in most people's eyes. But let's hope that he comes in and he proves that he is an able deputy. Norwich clearly feel that is the case. That's why they've gone and given him a new contract, and they believe he can be part of it moving forward. But yeah, I think anybody who's seen George Long in a Norwich shirt since he came into the building would feel it is a step down from Gunny. But Gunny is one of the best in the division. But hopefully today, behind that, to reference the previous discussion about Cordova, behind that settled back 4, that's important. He's not coming into a back 4 that's had to change Cordova out, or maybe a full back change. It's the same settled back 4 for the last few games, and that collectively they can help guide him through, and vice versa. If you Stoke and Pellat, they will know full well, all about George Long, and they will maybe look to test him in the early moments. So let's just hope, he's an experienced keeper. It shouldn't faze him. And that he sees this, as he said, I remember now when he did his contract signing interview, that he doesn't feel he's just coming along now to be a passenger for the next few years. He wants to push, doesn't he? Yep. Well, here's your first opportunity today, potentially another 2 games for the rest of this week. Go in, show that maybe you are a bit closer than most people think you are to sort of challenging Angus moving forward. One thing is guaranteed under this head coach, it's a meritocracy. If you, as Kellen Fisher has proven, if you can come in, prove you're good enough, you'll probably stay in the side. So it's all there for him today, and let's hope he goes well. Yeah,
let's hope he does. You referenced the kind of shot stopping elements to it.
Do you want the away lineup?
Go on, give it to us in the right order. There you go. That's how we think Stoke will line up. I think Will must have been playing as a bit more of a left back, certainly rather than number 10. But there we go. You weren't far off, to be fair, given that you were doing it off the hoof whilst we were trying to broadcast as well. So we'll cut you some slack. But as I was saying, I think for all that we talk about kind of the the shot stopping abilities, so important it's going to be his use of the ball as well. We know how Norwich want to play, how they want to build from the back. Is there a bit more of a reluctance to him to do that, or is there a bit more of a willingness to clip the ball into Anti-Stianats on that right and the out ball that we've seen Norwich City use? That's going to be a really interesting sort of subplot, I think, to his.
I've made a right profile here. He's right. Sean's right. It is not the 2 run. It is ball from the wide. I'm going to go.
Your afternoon.
It can only get better from here. Sorry, you're right, Sean. It is ball from the wide. That's sacrilege. There we go. There you go. Move on.
There we go. That bench.
Sorry, Connor, to cut across. Yeah, your point about mixing it up. I thought it was interesting on Thursday that Johannes was talking about this 5-game block, 4 of those away. He said we're not going to have it all our own way in terms of style of play. We're not going to be able to control every single game, particularly the away games, in possession, as they have done against Watford, against Hull, particularly at Carrow Road recently. He referenced Derby when they had it, definitely not all their own way for spells of that game, but also the Leeds home game. They had to dig in, they had to show resilience, they had to show defensive resolve. So that leads to the point you were making. I think there will be maybe occasions today, maybe Preston midweek, Cardiff coming up, Sheffield Wednesday away, where they will have to not go away from the template that Johannes wants to try and develop week in, week out, but a pragmatism basically that they can't try and play in one style and one way and hope that's going to be effective, because the reality is in the Championship they will be tested, and they have been in recent games, and they've withstood that. And then, like they did at Derby, they weathered a period in that early part of that second half when Derby equalised, and then they came through it and they started to play again. And then from that, they created chances. So, yeah, could we foresee that today? And if that is the case, having that out ball with Cernach, with Science, Slimani, his ability to sort of transition through the counter, Nunes as well, is probably going to be something they might need to utilise at points in this game, because I think the reality is, not all that long ago, was it their last home game here where they absolutely dismantled Portsmouth? So, and then they got a decent point away at Swansea. So Stoke will be looking to build on that as well. And I think there's no doubt with a new head coach, players keen to impress, you would expect Norwich will have to withstand some certain periods of pressure for them.
Yeah, and of course Stoke are coming into this game with really off the back of what has been Narcis Balach's real opportunity to work with the players. I'm just going to answer this comment here from Neil Luper about Jack Wilshere not here today. I think Arsenal under-18s are playing today, which I think we're expecting to be his last game in charge. I don't know who they're playing though, off the top of my head. I've got Brighton in my head, but I think that might be Norwich's 18 to play Brighton. But I'm not expecting him to be here. Well, he won't be here today. I think Jeff Matt's point is an interesting one as well. Narcis Balach was particularly bullish on Borja Sainz, wasn't he? And I think this maybe feeds into the point that you bowled at Johannes on Thursday at his press conference in terms of that familiarity on both sides. It is a subplot here this afternoon. It's going to be really interesting to see if it holds any sort of bearing once the game does get underway.
Yeah, I mean, it surely has to have a bearing because of the proximity of the change. It certainly shouldn't be any secrets from either side. And obviously Johannes was joking about it abandoned off ball completely. I don't think that's going to happen. So, and Pelach was I thought, setting aside the Borja quotes, he was very complimentary about Norwich and the style of play and how good they can be, and he knows that because he's been inside the camp. So I think there'll be a mutual respect there, but they're two very progressive coaches, two very relatively young coaches, and they will back themselves to almost, even though one knows the other and vice versa, are there areas of potential weakness or vulnerability that each can exploit. And if they have a little bit of an insider track, then that might allow them to see those that maybe another coach wouldn't necessarily see. But as a factor, I don't think so. I mean, it is a bit of a cliche, but it isn't so much about who's in the dugout, it's who's on the park, isn't it? So, I'm not sure how much of a factor that is, but we'll see. We'll see whether Pelach can actually nullify Borja. It does not by foul means, as I've seen one or two of the comments here, but I mean that will be interesting subplot, but. It's probably more for us to dissect than any relevance or bearing on the actual outcome of it.
Yeah, let us know your predictions as well as we get into them. I think this is a really interesting block of games, but both individually and sort of the next six between obviously the international break that we're just coming in off to the next one in November in 3 weeks' time. 4 of Norwich's next 5 games are away from home. We've got trips to Preston and Cardiff and Sheffield Wednesday as well to come. And it is going to be interesting for that element that you spoke about now, because teams are going to be really aware of how they play and are going to try and come up now, I think, with plans to.
Do you actually know why is that? You probably don't even know.
I'm more familiar with the 2 Ronnies, to be honest.
But okay, you know them as well.
Yeah.
For references.
4 candles and all that sort of
thing. That's the one.
But I think this is a really interesting block of games. But equally, this first game, as we saw against Swansea, after an international break where you think Josh Sargent's come back very late to it and has come out from a different time zone, Cordoba as well, even though he hasn't played, has come from a different one. Obviously, they're boosted by the fact that Nunes hasn't been away, but it can be a really tricky fixture. And I think in isolation, but also as a collective, the next 6 are going to be really interesting for us, I think, to gauge where Norwich City are in general.
Yeah, I mean, you did a column on that today. I wouldn't disagree. The cautionary note is that the first game after the previous international break was Swansea, which was, albeit they could have got something from the game with Borja's late flurry, but it was a very laboured, very sluggish, disjointed performance. That was off the back of beating Coventry in their first league win under Johannes. So I did bowl that at him on Thursday, and what you'd hope is that they look at that element of the build-up for today and then maybe try and learn some lessons. But he made the point, there was 2 or 3 days last week, they had 4 players in because you've got a lot of the younger players were away with their national association. So that cannot help the preparations. He basically was candid enough. He said it'd be Thursday, it'd be Friday, and that would be it. But then he went on to say you just need to almost simplify it, strip it back to the basics. A lot of the blocks of work have gone in already at this point, and now it's just almost today maybe muscle memory, going back to the key fundamentals, rather than trying to overload them too much with information today. Because as you rightly say, Colin, Josh Sargent per se plays Wednesday morning, early hours, Central America. I'm not looking at it.
Fine, is it?
No, fair enough. And then he's getting on a plane. I don't even know what time he would have got back into Colney. Probably Thursday. But would he have done anything on Thursday for the recovery? Nothing. So he's had one training session, if that. So and we know that the one before the game day is a pretty relaxed affair, a lot of shape work. So I think today there's a few imponderables in terms of fitness and fatigue and miles on the clock over the last 2 weeks. But you just hope they can grind their teeth collectively and get through it. And same again, Preston, and then they've got a little bit of space building into the weekend's game. But it has to be a factor because it cannot be conducive for an elite athlete like Josh Sargent to spend however many hours on a plane, plural, because he played in America, I think North America, then Central America, I think they played Mexico away. Lots of miles, same for the overall they didn't play, but that is ideal preparation.
We're opening up a can of worms here now, big with the Chuckle Brothers and all sorts. Which is
that's more like it.
Which is not good. I mean, I don't actually drink, but I'm sure there maybe would be some entertainment value in that.
We're bad enough. We don't need beer to colour the waters any further.
Indeed. And hopefully the double act we're talking about, and this is a great segue, come full time, is Norwich City's SAS, of course, in Sargent and Science. How do you see this going, Paddy? It's I think we say this most weeks, where you say you can sort of see all three results, but because I think of the context that we just put into it, that feels especially relevant today. What are you feeling?
What's the stat you hit us with as we walked from the car park?
So Norwich City have never won consecutive league games at Stoke in their history, ever.
And what was the result last time there?
They won 3-0.
So you basically kiboshed an away win there, Connor. To be fair, setting aside history and whether those trends will play out, I've thought draw today just because Stoke are on a bit of an upward curve now. There's a sense maybe that they there's one or two in their ranks. While I don't think it's a huge factor, they may be extra motivated today. I'm thinking more Ben Gibson than Pellac, Clements. And then we've discussed on the Norwich side, very limited preparation. You've got, George Long in, Gunny out. Not ideal, is it? But, I'd sign for a draw today and then, roll it on to Preston and get a win there maybe. So, 2-2.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah,
as Neil says, records are there to be broken.
They are indeed. I'm going to say it will be, but very, very tight. 2-1 Norwich win.
2-1 Norwich.
Yeah. Well, I'm not fully in. I'm not diving in 2 feet with that prediction. I think it's more. I'm sort of waving the foot in terms of commitment levels there. But we'll see what we get. Of course, Pinkin.com is the place to follow it throughout the afternoon. We'll have all of your analysis, all of your reaction. Paddy will be speaking to the main man, Johannes Hoftorp, after the game for his assessment of it as well. And it's going to be an interesting day in the sunshine here at Stoke. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you again very soon.